In our headlines on this Friday, June 26th, here in South Korea. In Venezuela, the search for survivors continue. As authorities say, well over 200 people have been killed and more than 4,000 injured from the two deadly earthquakes that struck the capital area. Meanwhile, a cargo ship transiting the Strait of Hormuz on a UN-approved route is hit by a projectile, challenging efforts to restore shipping traffic through the crucial waterway. Here in South Korea, the Finance Ministry announces intentions to ease the cap on fuel prices to reflect the global retreat in oil prices and to ease inflationary pressure. Venezuela is reeling in the aftermath of two deadly earthquakes that have taken hundreds of lives, injured thousands of others, and left rescuers frantically digging through the rubble for survivors. Our Park Chun-han has the latest.
The search for survivors continues in Venezuela following the two earthquakes measured at magnitudes 7.2 and 7.5 on Wednesday. The official death toll has climbed to at least 235.
As for what matters most, which is human life and human health, up to this moment, regrettably, we must report that 188 Venezuelan men and women have died as a result of the earthquake. 1,520 people have been admitted to hospitals with injuries and are currently receiving treatment, and 157 people have been reported missing.
The coastal state of La Guaira, home to major international ports, took the heaviest blow with about 40 high-rise buildings reduced to rubble. Nationwide, at least 250 structures were destroyed, including 8 hospitals and dozens of public facilities. Rescuers initially spent the night digging through concrete with bare hands, shovels, and wheelbarrows due to a lack of heavy equipment. However, relief operations are now gaining momentum as government mobilized heavy machinery arrives. Acting President Delcy Rodriguez also met with the Army's General Staff to coordinate urgent relief in La Guaira. Meanwhile, help is also pouring in from the international community. The United States has pledged to deploy a regional disaster assistance response team and provide at least $150 million in assistance through partners, including the International Medical Corps and the World Food Program. It has also committed $100 million to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs Venezuela Pooled Fund. The European Union is coordinating a massive effort, with countries like Spain, Italy, France, and Germany sending search and rescue teams. Neighboring Colombia is dispatching a 64-member delegation with a specialized search dog team, while Mexico and the World Health Organization are sending medical support. As aftershocks continue, thousands of displaced residents remain on the streets, unable to return home. Park Chun-han, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, sea traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has been rendered uncertain after an attack on a cargo vessel that was moving on a United Nations-approved route. Our Lee Seung-jae covers the assault.
The United Nations International Maritime Organization has suspended plans to evacuate more than 11,000 sailors stranded in the Strait of Hormuz after a cargo ship was attacked, raising new concerns about security in one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. IMO Secretary General Arsenio Dominguez said several vessels had already been evacuated, but the operation has now been put on hold until authorities can ensure adequate safety guarantees for cruise and commercial ships. The latest incident occurred on Thursday when the UK Maritime Trade Operations Agency reported that a cargo ship was struck by an unknown projectile about 7.5 nautical miles southeast of Oman's port of Dahit. A U.S. official confirmed the attack and told CBS News that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was behind it. No injuries were reported, and maritime security firm Vanguard said the Singapore-flagged Ever Lovely was able to continue through the Strait of Hormuz. The incident comes just days after the United States and Iran reached a 14-point agreement aimed at ending hostilities. As part of the deal, Iran agreed to make its best efforts to ensure the safe passage of commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz for the next 60 days. However, disagreements remain. Tehran says it plans to charge what it calls maritime service fees for ships using the waterway, while the United States argues that no country has the authority to impose charges on an international shipping route. Iran has also warned that all vessels must travel only through routes designated by Tehran. Authorities said ships using unauthorized routes would not be guaranteed safe passage or insurance coverage, and any resulting damage would be the responsibility of the ship's owner and operator. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps echoed that warning, saying safe navigation is only possible through approved routes. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most vital maritime choke points, with roughly 1/5 of global oil supplies passing through it under normal conditions. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the transit of South Korean ships continues across the Strait of Hormuz. According to the Oceans Ministry on this Friday, 8 vessels previously trapped in the Persian Gulf have managed to transit the area, with a total of 37 South Korean sailors on board. Now, given this latest development, the number of Korean ships stranded in the region has been brought down to 5, including the HMM Namu, which is under repair in Dubai following a drone assault back in May. Taking to his social media platform, President Lee Jae-myung revealed that 3 more ships would pass through the critical waterway over the weekend. He also praised the efforts of Korean officials in ensuring a prompt transit operation. Also here in South Korea, the government will ease its cap on fuel prices in line with efforts to ease inflationary pressure and to reflect the global retreat in oil prices. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
The Korean government is lowering the maximum fuel price ceiling that has been in place to ease the impact of soaring energy costs. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and Economy Ko Yoon-chun confirmed the downward revision during an emergency economic meeting on Friday morning.
The 7th maximum fuel price cap will be lowered from the current level, taking into comprehensive consideration the fall in global oil prices, the financial burden on the public, and fiscal conditions. It will be maintained until consumer oil prices stabilize.
Major international crude benchmarks have recently fallen to the $60 to $70 range per barrel, effectively returning to levels seen before the outbreak of the war in the Middle East. However, the average price of gasoline and diesel at domestic gas stations has remained high, hovering around 2,000 won per liter for a 3rd consecutive month. The government determined that alongside the usual distribution time lag, the current maximum price caps fixed for nearly 3 months at 1,934 won for gasoline, 1,923 won for diesel, and 1,530 won for kerosene have paradoxically acted as a price floor, restricting downward movement at the pumps. The government stressed the necessity of preemptive inflation control, noting that high prices remain a persistent issue despite easing external uncertainties.
While uncertainties remain in the follow-up negotiation process, the burden on the public continues due to high inflation, high exchange rates, high interest rates, and slowing employment.
In addition to the fuel price measures, the government plans to inject 1 trillion won, around $653.6 million to stabilize consumer prices, expanding discount programs for agricultural, livestock, and fishery products. The exact margin of the price ceiling cut will be announced at 7 p.m. on Friday night. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
On the local bourse, a circuit breaker for the benchmark KOSPI was activated on this Friday as stocks surrendered more than 8% on session. The halt at around noon marked the 5th of its kind this year and came after a sell-side sidecar in the morning. At closing bell, the benchmark KOSPI was down over 5% at 8,411.2. Meanwhile, the South Korean currency weakened further against the US dollar, hitting close to 1,550 won, which is the highest since the global financial crisis in 2009. President Lee Jae-myung has pledged tangible support to foster next-generation defense technology firms. Chairing a strategy meeting at the Blue House on this Friday, he highlighted the essential role of cutting-edge technology in advancing national security. That being said, he called for the building of companies here capable of competing with the US's Palantir and Germany's Helsing. Accordingly, Korea is expected to streamline its defense procurement and set up a government-funded venture capital fund to invest in promising startups. A second day of confirmation hearing on this Friday for Prime Minister nominee Han Sang-suk turned into a war of words between ruling and opposition lawmakers over past property transactions. The People Power Party questioned the sale and rental of one of Han's office units, alleging unfair treatment, while the Democratic Party dismissed the question as politically motivated. Han, for her part, denied any wrongdoing. The questions framing this year's Jeju Forum are focused on two main tasks: promoting partnerships and promoting peace despite deep divisions. Our Moon Hye-ryan files this report.
As conflicts reshape the international landscape, this year's Jeju Forum has turned its focus to one question: how can peace be sustained in an increasingly fragmented world? That question framed two of the forum's central discussions, one examining the future of the international order, the other exploring prospects for Middle East peace in the wake of conflict. In a session bringing together former foreign ministers from across the Asia-Pacific, speakers debated whether the world is entering a fundamentally new era of disorder, with many warning against treating instability as inevitable. Former Australian Foreign Minister Gareth Evans argued that smaller, flexible coalitions of mid-sized nations still have the power to push back.
There is a real capacity for the world's middle powers, and all of us really represent them, to step up and make a difference through creative and cohesive, multilateral and minilateral coalition building.
That debate carried particular resonance on the Korean peninsula. Several speakers identified Northeast Asia as a critical test of the non-proliferation regime, warning that nuclear armament by either Korea or Japan could trigger a wider chain reaction across the region and beyond. A parallel session turned the lens on the Middle East, where experts described a region facing profound uncertainty: a fragile ceasefire, unresolved political disputes, and Iran's assertion of control over the Strait of Hormuz, disrupting global shipping. For South Korea, an energy-dependent economy, the reverberations have been acute. Lee Kyung-cho, Seoul's newly appointed special representative for Middle East peace, addressed the session directly.
I would like to reaffirm the Korean government's consistent support for the two-state solution, which remains the only viable option to seek to achieve, with the full support of the international community, towards a lasting peace in the region.
He also highlighted the SHINE initiative, unveiled during a presidential visit to Egypt last November, as Korea's broader vision for engagement with the region. Together, the two sessions reflected the central challenge confronting governments worldwide, sustaining cooperation in an era of growing division, and the role middle powers like South Korea may play in meeting it. Moon Hye-ryan, Arirang News, Jeju.
And on the sidelines of that annual forum, the UN's top nuclear official spoke to Arirang News about his thoughts regarding future UN nuclear inspections in Iran and North Korea's efforts to expand its nuclear arsenal. Our Kim Bo-kyung has details.
The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, called the MOU between the U.S. and Iran relatively succinct, but said that talks are still needed on the details of how the nuclear activities will be supervised, monitored, and verified by the IAEA. This during his interview with Arirang News on Thursday.
This means that we have an agreement on the principle, which is very important, but we now have to go into the technical discussions to determine where and when we start with the actual inspection.
There is no imminent activity starting there yet, but as there is commitment between the two leaders, Grossi said the IAEA will definitely do its role by being present throughout the process of inspections. When it comes to North Korea's nuclear activities, Grossi said the regime is showing a concerning trend, as Pyongyang unfortunately does not seem to stop these activities despite the numerous UN Security Council resolutions. The IAEA was expelled in 2009 from North Korea, but has been reporting on its nuclear activities in great detail. Through photos of Kim Jong-un inspecting a newly commissioned nuclear material production plant, the IAEA was able to confirm that there is a new uranium enrichment facility at the Yongbyon nuclear complex.
What we see is a stable trend of increase in the production of fissile material for the development of nuclear weapons. We also see activity around the reprocessing units there, which are used to extract plutonium for further manufacture of nuclear devices.
He underlined how the agency will continue to keep an eye on the regime's nuclear development. Meanwhile, as one of the candidates for the next UN Secretary General, Grossi pledged to play a more active role visiting areas where further assessment is needed, as demonstrated by his trip to waters off the coast of Fukushima in Japan. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Speaking about the candidates hoping to head the UN starting 2027, our Oh Seong sat down exclusively that is, with Rebecca Grynspan, who currently heads the UN's Trade and Development Agency and hopes to use her experience there to enhance the broader operations of the UN.
The United Nations must return to the head of the table of multilateral cooperation, as an increasingly multipolar world risks deeper fragmentation. That's according to Rebecca Grynspan, Secretary General of the UN Conference on Trade and Development, as she seeks to become the next UN Secretary General. In an interview with Arirang News at the Jeju Forum, Grynspan called for the need to restore the UN's relevance by bringing it back to the centre of global diplomacy.
And I have been traveling a lot and talking to a lot of people. What you find is that people ask you, where is the UN? So back at the table, peace and security as obviously as a priority of the UN, together with development and human rights. But we need to strengthen mediation, active diplomacy and preventive diplomacy within the UN.
Of course, the UN Charter was created in a very different era than the one we are in now. And, well, how would the UN then tackle emerging challenges such as artificial intelligence, cyber threats and, disinformation, also the growing role of non-state actors, also while keeping to its founding principles?
First of all, these are not only challenges but also opportunities. And we need to make sure that the opportunities go everywhere. And in terms of AI and the digital transformation, for example, we have to close the gaps. We have to build the capacities in the countries, and we have to make the opportunities get to everybody, everywhere. And we have to really help on the diffusion of technology so everybody can prosper at the same pace. On the challenges part, I think that we have to cooperate. And here we need to bring academia, we need to bring the scientific community. We cannot tackle what we don't understand. And so we need to bring the actors that are on the frontier of knowledge and technology to the UN so we can have AI and the digital transformation.
How do you see the role of the Republic of Korea in bridging divides and reinforcing multilateralism in this fragmenting world?
Korea has become from being a recipient country of aid to be a donor and to really pay back in a way all the help and support that you have received in the past. And you have acted responsibly and with a lot of solidarity with respect to the rest of the world. And the themes that Korea has chosen, the digital transformation, AI as examples, obviously trade, critical minerals, are the center of the discussion today. So kudos to Korea, and really we count on these voices to be able to strengthen multilateralism.
Looking ahead, Grynspan hopes to lead a more inclusive and pragmatic UN that expands partnerships with private actors and civil society. Her measure of success for the next decade: to no longer hear the question, where is the UN? Oh Seong, Arirang News, Jeju.
In other news now, Seoul's annual book fair is underway this week, and on its opening day, a record number of bookworms, if you will, turned up, reflecting the renewed interest here in reading. Our culture correspondent Chung Hae-rim files this report.
Long lines stretch across the COEX on Wednesday morning as visitors waited to enter the Seoul International Book Fair. Even before the doors opened, excitement had already been building online, with early bird tickets selling out and some ticket packages drawing heavy demand.
I thought there wouldn't be that many people since it's the first day and a weekday, but I came for the open run at 8 a.m. and there were about 70 people in front of me. I'm here for author Choi Eun-young's signing event. This is her book, and the special edition cover is only available here.
This year's theme is Homo Duduri, or the questioning human, reflecting on what reading means in the age of artificial intelligence. Beyond traditional publisher booths, the fair features interactive programs, special merchandise, author events, and exhibitions designed to turn reading into a more immersive experience. This reflects the growing text tip trend where the younger generation invest in reading, collecting books, and sharing literary tastes, and that is considered trendy and unique.
I was surprised to see that there are more people who like books than I expected. I came just to look around and enjoy the vibe. I like reading because it gives me time to fully focus without getting distracted by anything else.
This is the booth of Minumsa, one of Korea's best-known publishers, famous for its world literature collection. And as you can see behind me, the line just to buy a book just keeps going, proving the so-called text tip trend.
Recently, many people seem to be looking for novels. In everyday life, people don't really have many chances to think about books. But through events like this, they can rediscover the joy of reading. I hope people continue visiting bookstores even after the book fair ends.
Artificial intelligence offers answers faster than ever, and this year's book fair asks a different question: what it means to think, imagine, and ask questions as humans. And judging by the crowds, many readers are still eager to find those answers between the pages. Chung Hae-rim, Arirang News.
Up next, we share with you the sounds of kugak music with a modern twist by young artists in an annual competition that seeks to hit all the right notes to keep Korea's traditional tunes pitch perfect. Our Park Gun-woo reports.
Violin sounds alongside traditional Korean instruments like the kayagum and ajeng. Modern electronic beats layered over centuries-old Korean melodies. They're just some of the ways a new generation of musicians is reinventing kugak, a traditional Korean performing art made up of music, song, dance, and ceremonial movements. A total of 10 teams competed in Thursday evening's final of the 2026 edition of the annual 21st Century Korean Music Project, organized by the Culture Ministry. Participants say their goal is to make kugak more accessible to a wider audience.
We're trying to make kugak more approachable by weaving traditional folk melodies into easy listening music. If we have the chance to perform on the global stage, we'd like listeners around the world to discover Korean folk music in a fun and accessible way.
Every finalist went home with an award and prize money, giving them resources to keep pushing the boundaries of kugak. To mark the competition's 20th anniversary, the top prize was upgraded from the Prime Minister's Award to the Presidential Award, carrying prize money of 15 million won, or roughly $9,700. And that went to Keoju Band, whose performance combined electric guitars and drums with kugak, while their outfits blended modern fashion with traditional hanbok.
We're planning to use the prize money to broaden the sonic range of traditional Korean instruments. We'll also experiment with ways for instruments like the janggu to produce tones similar to Western percussion.
Organizers say the competition, which has been run for 2 decades, will continue encouraging innovation while preserving the essence of kugak.
What's important isn't simply preserving tradition, but reinterpreting it while staying true to kugak's musical language. Over the past 20 years, the project has empowered young artists to build their own musical identity. We'll continue creating opportunities for emerging musicians while making kugak more accessible to the public.
20 years on, the project continues to nurture emerging kugak talent and expand the global reach of Korean traditional music. And as a new generation takes center stage, expectations are already building on for what the next 20 years will bring. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Summer-like heat returned to western regions today, while showers move through the east. Starting today, daytime temperatures will climb again. The summer heat will stick around through the weekend, with highs reaching 32 degrees Celsius on both Saturday and Sunday. The good news is that we'll enjoy plenty of sunshine tomorrow. Meanwhile, UV levels will be very high between noon and 3 p.m. Ozone levels are forecast to reach bad levels in some central areas, including Seoul and parts of Jeollado provinces. So during the hottest part of the day, it's best to cut back on outdoor activities if you can. As for temperatures, Seoul will start the day at 20 degrees Celsius, with Daejeon and Busan both at 18 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 32 degrees, Chuncheon 30, Gwangju 31 degrees. Looking ahead, rain is forecast for Jeju Island on Wednesday and is expected to gradually spread into southern regions afterward. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That brings us to the end of this week's editions of the Daily Report. Coming up next is our daily discussion with members of the foreign media.